Let's call the school board meeting to order. George, take roll.
Colonel Evans?
Here.
Mr. Grozan?
Here.
Mrs. Ludwig?
Here.
Mr. Miko?
Here.
Mr. Naso?
Here.
All
Stand
present.
for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is where we talk about district goals. We have 3 goals: student achievement, financial prudence, and community engagement. With that, we'll move on to public comment. Do we have any? No? We have no public comment. With that, we'll bring on the superintendent's report. Cameron?
Thank you, Mr. Naso. At this time, I'd like to give an update to the board and the community as to where we're at in our 2020 strategic plan. So the presentation is going to be on the screen. So if it's feasible, I'd like the board to go sit in the auditorium. That way, it would be better viewing of our presentation. So as we know and we've talked about over the past 3 years as a district, is our Strong Schools 2020 plan is the plan we've put in place and put strategic actions underneath the goals that Mr. Naso shared of academic achievement and growth, financial prudence, and community engagement about how we're going to ensure our work towards being a premier district by the year 2020. So what we did is I went through and we have a plan, we have action steps underneath some of the objectives that we've had, is we look and track our progress throughout the year. So this is actual data as to where we're at currently in terms of our work towards our goals, objectives, and action steps as a part of the 2017-18 plan. So just to kind of take a look at this, the first overarching goal of academic achievement and growth is there. And based on the work we've done thus far, we could see that we're reaching 85% of what's set up for this year in those action steps. And you could see the breakdown for each of the objectives there. Now, if we want to look at what that means, what does an 85% mean? It means that we're making significant progress towards the action steps we've established under academic achievement and growth. What I wanted to do tonight for the board and the community is kind of highlight in the first 5 or 6 months of the school year, what have we worked on, what's been our focus, and is comprised in that graphic that you just saw. One of the big areas where we spent a lot of attention is how do we embed common assessments into what our teachers are doing, not adding additional assessments, not adding additional tests, but what we want to look at is consistency across the district. So for example, if a 3rd grade teacher is teaching math and they get to the end of chapter 3, every 3rd grade teacher in the entire district is going to give the same chapter 3 assessment. So we as a district could have a good baseline about how all of our kids are doing in 3rd grade math, and our teachers in the building can utilize that information as well. By 2018-19, this will be completed. I've been visiting all of the buildings to kind of share, answer questions, and we have significant support from our teachers for the work that we're doing in embedding these in what they're doing on a daily basis. Secondly, we've talked a lot about our building instructional plans. This is how our principals decide and work towards improving academic achievement and growth at the building level. They look at the leadership that they provide, the areas of growth, the areas of strength, and as a district, we provide support for the buildings, whether it be through monthly or quarterly meetings with them to help support the work that they're doing to improve in the areas they've identified. As we've also shared, implementing makerspaces K-12, we've got them in Kinsner Elementary, the middle school and high school. We're working on the rest of the elementary schools by the end of the school year. But it's not just about having a great space for kids to go to create, to learn, to collaborate in the media center. It's about how do we integrate those concepts, those STEM or STEAM concepts into the classroom, and that's what Vicki and her team is working on throughout the rest of the school year. And finally, we've talked about improving writing instruction. It was clearly identified as a need. internally, as well as our state test scores. And I thought better than tell you exactly what we're doing to improve writing instruction and the coaching we're providing, we could show you an elementary example of what this looks like in practice.
So when you think of teaching writing, there are two pieces of it. There is the product and there is the process. When you and I went to school, it was all about the product. It was your teacher standing at the front of the classroom and saying, you have an essay due in 2 weeks about the imagery in Romeo and Juliet. There was no teaching that truly went on. It was write an essay about whatever it is going to be. You 2 weeks later handed in your essay. Maybe they wrote all over it in red pen, you got it back, and that was what was considered writing. And so that was all about the product. You finished something, you got a grade on it, and you moved on. The other side of that then is the process, which is teaching students from beginning to end, what does it mean to be a writer? What does it mean to brainstorm? What does it mean to draft? What does it mean to revise what it is that they have written? What does it mean to edit? And then finally, what does it mean to publish? And so that is the whole purpose of Writer's Workshop, of showing students from beginning to end, how do you truly instruct?
Having Lori come to Chapman Elementary and to be able to come into every single classroom is just a great and wonderful experience. For me as a teacher, I appreciate the fact that she can come in and she can present a lesson and I can see firsthand how the students are reacting and kind of take a seat back and take it all in versus when you're teaching it yourself and you're kind of immersed in what you're doing.
It is awesome to have somebody come in and model and just being able to see by example. And, you know, we think that we're teaching the students, but really we're learners too. So it's just another way for us to learn more about our craft.
And I'm curious to see what your story.
Writer's Workshop is about having the kids write about what they want to write about. So really the interest level is really high because they can write about whatever they want.
Let's see if we can find a place where you
The confidence that I see within the students and the writing is just tremendous. For them to come up to me and say, look what I've done. I didn't think I could write this much. And I really love it. I wrote a whole page is just wonderful for me to see.
The lesson that I get to do with first graders today is about adding detail to writing. That's something that we have all heard our entire lives. You need to add more detail to that. But we never show students what does that really mean and how do you do that? So instead of just giving them the directive, add detail, I'm actually going to show them a technique of when you add detail to writing, we're going to use a comparison. Let's say that I was petting my cat and I was like, oh, she's so soft. How could I compare how soft her fur is? Her fur was as soft as?
Silk.
As silk. I think one of the best things about Writer's Workshop is this idea of we're not trying to get everyone to the same place. It's instead of where did you come into me as a writer and what value am I adding to you as a teacher? How am I growing you as a writer? So it's differentiation in the best sense of the word because I'm meeting each student exactly where they are and taking them where they need to go. There's always something nice about seeing someone else try out the lesson with their kids. And so it's actually a joy for me to model the lesson for the teacher while they're in the back of the room with their students so they can see how does this work with the kids. Instead of it being a hypothetical or watching a video, it's me with their students.
Thank you. So what we want to do next is we want to look at, as we talked about in this example, how do we expand the role of instructional coaches? We have Dr. Wolfong who comes and collaborates with our district. Aaron right now is working, the Ohio Department of Education has released literacy grants and we're applying for those and looking at what we can do internally to help expand the roles of coaching within our district to help support our teachers in their practice. We're also working on, Vicki has piloted with our technology coaches, the implement of a learning management system. Taking a look at how we house content, how we house lesson plans, activities, learning, and assessments on an online platform. We've used Google Classroom in the past few years as a district, but this is a more robust system that's going to help give us the tools that we need to manage an electronic learning system or management system moving forward. One of the other aspects we've started and will continue to work on is how we virtually collaborate as a district. So we've spent a lot of time this first half of the year developing and getting the equipment necessary, the webcams, the kind of protocols, how do we work through Google Meet. And not only are we starting, but we're focusing on how can we virtually meet. In fact, this afternoon at the high school, some of our students were virtually meeting with a group in Canada discussing a topic in the area of science. So that's something about how do we expand, how we communicate, collaborate beyond our walls. And then one of the things that we're working on in the second half of the year with our Community Advisory Committee is expanding the elementary extracurricular opportunities for our students, which in current status is one student council per elementary level. We want to look at how do we bolster the work that they're able to do outside of the school day with equitable extracurricular opportunities. As we go on to financial prudence, once again, you can see a similar graphic of how we've fared this first half of the year in terms of the overall goal and objectives. And as we look at kind of a 75% average, that means that we've made satisfactory progress. There's work that needs to be done, but when you look at the actual action steps underneath this and why this percentage is a little lower, it's simply a timing issue. There are aspects that we have not started yet. They're not counted as a positive for us, but there's aspects that have not been started yet that need to be concluded by the end of the school year. We still felt it was important to include the work and where we currently are at this point in time. So our focus so far has been financial transparency, making sure that our community, our staff, and our parents trust the work we're doing and trust the work that George is doing, and that's been recognized by his meritorious budget award in the last 2 years. We've talked about how we're operating efficiently, and a couple of the areas we focused on is reducing outstanding student fees, which we've done significantly, and as George reported at the last board meeting, of increasing investment returns, which were over $100,000 plus better than we were a year ago because of those investment strategies. We're also have worked on the first half of the year a collaboration with the Strongsville Police Department to bring a school resource officer to Strongsville Middle School. With the size and the number of students, safety is our top priority, and in the next month or so, we feel that we may be able to bring this to fruition and have an SRO in place, and that's based on the positive working relationship that we have between the city, the police, and the school district. The last thing that Mr. Breckner, Operations Manager, has done during his time here is take a look at our work order completion. Our work order is a system. If something in your classroom or in the district needs repaired, replaced, or fixed, you submit an electronic work order. So if we take a look at the first quarter of 2016 and compare it to the first quarter of 2017, you will see in the top graph bordered by green that we've had over 100 more work orders submitted in the first 3 months of this school year, going from about 300 to about 400 work orders. In the bottom right graph, you will see the average days that work orders are open. So we had 100 more work orders come through, but we've gone from averaging 57 days to complete work orders to now only 20 days to complete and turn and close a work order from the time it's submitted to the time it's done. So if we look at that, kind of breaking it down to 5 or fewer days to close a work order, 6 to 15, 16 to 30, or 31 or more, you could see in the top left-hand corner in green the data for the 16-17 first quarter. I mean, you will see the biggest difference is it was taking 31 or more days to close 30% of our work orders. We were only completing about 55% of our work orders in the first 15 days. Fast forward to this year, only 17% of our work orders are taking 30 or more days, and over 70% of our work orders are being completed in the first 15 days, which means we're efficiently operating and our maintenance staff is doing a phenomenal job. We also need to understand there's going to be work orders that are going to be there for over 30 days just because of the nature of the work orders. Or for example, Kinsner has a new Gaga pit. It needs to be installed. We're not going to install it in the middle of winter. The work order is sitting there until it's time for the spring. The kids will be back out there and we'll install the Gaga pit. Next steps, George has been working with the city and Southwest General in terms of where we're going with the wellness program. In addition, he and Jenny's department have been meeting and going through training to integrate our new HR and finance system that will help our operations and efficiencies. Steve is working on finalizing the capital improvement projects with the remaining bond dollars, specifically targeting critical repairs in the elementary buildings, and then continuing to implement the maintenance, the facilities maintenance plan through the work of the preventative maintenance program that was purchased through School Dude. So that will be some of our areas of focus for the second half of the school year. Finally, looking at community engagement, again, averaging about 75% making satisfactory project or progress for the overall goal and objectives and action steps. As many are know, because a lot of these are highly visible things that we've done, our Strongsville Positive Outreach team has worked on providing meaningful events for our community through the Greet and Treat, through the upcoming family fun night or family first night, and what we did last year in terms of the senior signs. Dan was instrumental in working and developing with a local vendor an online apparel outlet that will continue to be an option for our parents to buy athletic or just Strongsville gear. And I think in the next few weeks, getting ready for the spring season, we will have that online store back ready to go. We also created elementary nights. For each of the 5 football games, we featured each of our 5 elementary schools, and that was a great community event in connection with our athletic program. And finally, we've been looking at how can we talk a lot as adults about what we need to do to improve and what does it mean to be premier, but we also need to attain feedback from a student perspective, and that's why we started a student advisory committee to the superintendent that we initiated this year. It's a group of middle school and high school students that meet with me quarterly. In the first meeting, we laid out what does it mean to be a premier district academically from a student perspective. We charted out all of their answers, we put them into categories, and we resurveyed our students, and here are the results of the survey. Based on kind of how the survey fared out and what we feel students can have a voice in and influence what we do as a district, we've selected 2 areas that will be the focus of our February meeting. One of those is highlighted in red, which is effectively using resources to help kids chart an academic path, knowing the resources or the courses to take. And we feel that it would be good to combine the 2 blue areas, which would be making sure the learning environment is fun, kids can be themselves and explore who they want to be, as well as that school life balance and making sure homework is meaningful, not just busy work. So we are going to work with our students next time. We are going to develop with them a means to get more information from the student body, and the goal would be that the student committee would come to the board later in the spring and share their recommendations of what they found and how they feel as a superintendent, as a district, we need to move forward. And we're very excited about the work with our students there. Next steps, Dan's going to continue to work on how we promote district events. We sent out an email today about what's going on in February, but we have so many great things going on in our school district. How can we continue to share what's happening? We've already started with an internship program with one business. We're looking to explore and expand those with others. And putting a lot of effort into reconnecting with our alumni, whether promoting in our district communications, as well as a district distinguished alumni program that's going to be held for the first time in many years, I believe in April this school year. So those are the updates with where we're at on community engagement, and I'd invite the board to come back up to the stage, and I can answer any questions at that time if you have any. Are there any questions or any other clarifications at this time? With that, I turn it over to Jenny Pelko for the human resource item for this month.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Ryba. I only have one item under Human Resources for your consideration this evening. Under B1, we have the appointment of a certificated staff member. This is a new intervention specialist that will be at Muraski Elementary. And that concludes my items.
Thank you, Jenny. That brings us to board policies.
Mr. Naso, we do need a vote on that item.
Have a motion,
So moved.
a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? George, take roll.
Colonel Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Brozan?
Yes.
Mrs. Ludwig?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Mr. Naso?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Brings us to board policies, second readings. We took the 2 policies out that we wanted to discuss. We're going to discuss those at the next meeting. That brings us to Board of Education, other. Anybody have any other? I have another, and it relates to the basketball program. And today I was going to read something about the process and how it was going and how I was disappointed in the process. And in light of today's activities. I'm not going to read my statement, but I am disappointed. And instead, I'm going to read two things. One, I talked to Mr. Garfoyle today. He called me, and he said that he was thankful for his time at Strongsville. He said, we have great kids, and he wishes them the best and hopes they finish strong. Second thing I want to say is good luck to Coach Lepowski. I know you always lead and coach with your heart, and I just wanted to wish him well, good luck, take good stewardship of our boys, and deliver. So, good luck. Thank you. That's all I have. We do have need for executive session.
To consider the employment, dismissal, or discipline of a public employee or official.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jane. Take roll.
Colonel Evans?
Yes.
Mrs. Ludwig?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Mr. Naso?
Yes.
Mr. Grozan?
Yes.
Enter an executive session at
6:20, we'll do it right. We'll just walk right there, and then we'll be done in 10 minutes.
6:25.
Okay, we won't have business when we come back.